Hello, everyone. I'm Carol Allen-Storey, and welcome to the Frontline Club series looking at the still image. The still image for me captures a moment in time, allowing the viewer to slow down and think, be reflective. It allows for greater emphasis and has fewer distracting elements than a moving image, giving the viewer more freedom to absorb, contextualize, and focus on the elements. It allows for contemplation. Exceptional photos have the power to take the viewer's mind into the scene and allow them to be a part of it. They have the power to evoke change for the good and sometimes the evil. The series of Frontline Talks is broadcast the first Thursday of every month. The program features the influence and impact of the still photograph, with international panelists representing curators, gallerists, agencies, auction house publishers, and photographers. Today's talk features Photo London Fair, and hurrah, it's back, even after COVID tragically closing its doors to the global art scene. And well done for everyone at Photo London to bring it back to the faux. Our panelists today include Michael Benson. He, with his wife Fariba Fashad, are the founders of Photo London and behind the Candlestar Art Consultancy, featuring the acclaimed international photography and sustainability award Prix Pictet. Ben Burdett is the founder of the Atlas Gallery here in London, is one of the foremost galleries worldwide, dealing exclusively in photography in all its forms, representing a diverse range of contemporary photographers, from classic vintage photography, photojournalism, fashion, and to experimental and art photography. Nick Brandt is unquestionably one of photography's greatest environmental champions, through his poetic and at times heartbreaking imagery of humanity's destruction of the natural world. His aesthetic shows how deeply our fates are intertwined. In Brandt's latest work, The Day May Break, he portrays people and animals together in a fine art, surreal, fogged atmosphere, causing us to reflect on the real life consequences of climate change. Today, I want to kick off this talk with Michael Benson. And if you would please introduce us a bit about what we're going to be expecting at Photo London, and a massive, massive, massive thank you from me and Pranvira for actually taking a part, to be a part of this show, given that Photo London opens in a week's time. Over to you.
It's a real pleasure. Actually, it's nice to be here and not on site. The team are working away busily, and I've been granted a kind of freedom pass for the evening, which is really rather nice. What I'd just like to do quickly, Panvera, I know whether you can share the screen, but just to show you, because I think maybe a lot of people have forgotten what it is, what an art fair is. So maybe we could just have a quick look at the way that we're coming together. So here we are. If we just go through these slides quickly, I can just take you through. So this is us beginning to build earlier this week. This is us yesterday, having spent all night building the pavilion. Ben is going to be one of our exhibitors in the pavilion. We have 88 exhibitors in the pavilion and all around the sides and the first floor at Somerset House. So we're going to be a little bit smaller than before, and that's kind of, reasons that I guess everyone is familiar with. Travel has been an absolute nightmare for a lot of our dealers, and we have been dealing with a situation where people have been changing their mind quite regularly. So we're thrilled to have as many as we have. We can quickly have the next slide just to show you the final vision of what photo. So this is it. Oh no, now so the next one. So let's stay on this one for a second. So this is what you'll see when you arrive on Wednesday. I wouldn't usually be showing this, but I just thought it was useful to remind people what an art fair actually is, because we haven't had one for 18 months. It's kind of interesting how we run from one art fair to another, and on a kind of adrenaline, which has been kind of missing during these kind of weird lockdown months. And we've been sort of remembering how we do stuff, and remembering how everything goes together. Fariba and I were saying as we were coming, we've been doing this for 6 editions, but some of our team haven't actually done an edition of the fair, and they're finding how intriguing, interesting, and tricky it can be to put this gig on at Somerset House. It's a very large takeover of the building, as you know. It's probably the biggest takeover of the building. It still is, even though we're slightly smaller than we usually are. We're thrilled to be back in the game, I think is the best way of describing it. The next set of slides really just show you one part of what we're up to. Our master of photography this year is Shirin Neshat, and here we are busily installing Shirin's monumental show, Masters Photography show. Those of you who are expert in this will see that we haven't quite sorted out the lights in the photograph on the right-hand side, but I can assure you, having visited today, that those are now perfect. And we're looking forward to unveiling that show as well as everything else, including another show for our public program around the photography of Robert Capa on Wednesday next week. One of the differences about Photo London this year is that actually we are going to be running our talks program entirely online. There will be one or two small talks in the screening room, but most of our talks, something like 50 in all, I think Bill Ewing has told me, will be online, not only during the fair, but also during Photo London Digital, which runs till almost the end of the month. That's a build on what we did last year, where we created a digital fair that we weren't sure that was going to work, but actually it worked very well, so we're doing it again. And all the exhibitors who are part of Photo London physically will also be part of that fair, so they get to continue their experience. And just to finish my introductory remarks, one of the things that we have learned over the pandemic is that Photo London is not simply something you turn up to for 5 days in May, or in this case September, but actually something that carries on throughout the year. We've always had a strong public program, public education program, but we've continued that ever since we were locked down. I don't know if you remember, right at the beginning of lockdown, when we knew we couldn't do the fair, we decided that what we would do is to make all of the talks that, thank God, we recorded. All of them are freely available to our audience, and that was a really interesting process because it grew our audience extremely quickly and extremely well. So that's kind of where we are now. I could talk, if you like, a little bit about how we actually got here, Carol, but I'm not sure if anyone wants to hear me rabbiting on about the various twists and turns that we've taken.
I think what would be interesting is just to share with the audience a bit about what the major challenges these last 18 months, start, stop, change about, coming back to a venue and so on. And also the actual structure of the fair today. You have from, my memory of more than 18 months ago when we had the fair, and, I've been involved and supportive of the fair for a very long time. Are there more exhibitions? Is there different kinds of focuses that were compared to when we first started?
Let's do that. I'll just go through quickly the twists and turns of actually how we got here, because as you know, we had to cancel postpone the fair in March 2020. We then tried unsuccessfully to restage it, having found a brilliant new venue at Grazing Gardens, done all of the work to design it and start marketing it, only to find that the lockdown continued. We then thought to ourselves, oh, it's okay, we can do it in May. And of course, then another lockdown. So this is pretty much our fourth attempt at our sixth edition, if you like. None of this is helped by, I'm not sure how much I want to say about the government, but none of it's helped by our blessed government and their inability to kind of grasp even the most simple concept about how you might do something as complicated as an art fair. They have been, frankly, appalling throughout this whole process. Having said which, one of the things that's kept us going has been that we have got some funding from the Arts Council to sustain our organisation, to keep our staffing reasonably intact. So that has been helpful, because we faced art fairs like ours depend for their survival on three things: one, booth fees; two, ticket sales; and three, sponsorships. Now, most of that income disappeared during the 18 months of lockdown. The only thing that probably didn't disappear was the fact that Nikon, bless them, came in after the first lockdown and decided they wanted to sponsor and partner with us. And so it's kind of nice that when we talk about the structure of the fair this next week, one of the things that we're very proud of is that the Nikon space, which is a very new space, very experimental. There's not only a Nikon space, but there's a Nikon lab. And Nikon have also partnered with us on the with the Emerging Photography Prize, which we've always run during the fair, but this is the first time that we had a really sort of significant partner. So they'll be showing some of the work of the emerging photographer who won the award last October at the Digital Fair in their booth. In terms of the look and feel of the fair, it won't look that dissimilar to what you might remember from last time, 18 months ago. We'll have the pavilion. We'll still have a discovery section for emerging galleries. It's a little bit smaller. It's about 20 galleries rather than 23. We'll still run on every part of the building, both the wings of the house, the first floor, and there will be 2 public program exhibitions. One, as I just said, will be Sharon Nesha, and the other one will be a collection of David Cogan's collection of photography from Robert Capper. So that's kind of the spirit of the fair. We will, as I said, we will run our talks program. We'll run it online, and we'll run it at points where, you know, we're not expecting people to visit the fair. So in the evenings and during the weekends and stuff like that, when the fair's not open. So, and we'll run it over a longer period of time than we would normally do. So normally during the fair, we'd run this whole massive talks during the fair itself. We'll space it out over the month of September.
Well, that's a supremely, you know, as you said earlier, we'll keep the audience engaged over a period of time, rather than collapsing it down into the physically at Somerset House. One of the things I noted on your website was that there will be some people wearing, I'm not going to wear the American mask after Biden's. I'll be very careful to not put that up, but you know, we have to all be aware of what restrictions and the sensitivity, and I think it's really a good thing to encourage everyone to wear a mask, whether they're outdoors or indoors at the fair, just out of respect of some people that have a sensitivity and want to be safe. And I think that's well done for taking that point of view.
Well, I think it's absolutely essential if you're going to run at a big, you know, this is a very big public event, and therefore we have to be very, very careful and cautious. And so we have been so. In fact, we're even issuing our some of our exhibitors really want to stress this point. So we've had these rather nice, amusing yellow stickers that that people can put on there outside the booth, reminding people that they're not to come in unless they're wearing a mask.
Excellent.
But we're actually also we're helped by Somerset House, who have had as a major public institution to take this very seriously. So they have, there are sanitization units all around the building. There's very good ventilation. There's not a one-way system that people are encouraged to keep in lanes, and as you say, to wear masks. So, we're hoping to be operating in a safe environment and giving people the opportunity to interact in a way they haven't been able to interact for the last 18 months.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Nick, can you please share with us your latest work and what the inspiration has been for it? And is it perhaps another chapter of your earlier work, Inherit the Dust? I'm leaving it up to you to take us on a guided journey of your latest body of work.
Thanks, Carol. Actually, first of all, can I just say well done to Michael because this panel is ostensibly about Photo London. I think all of us have felt how frustrating it is over the last year and a half to not see physical artwork. And seeing it on a computer screen is a very diminished experience. And so I am really delighted that at last Photo London is back, and I hope as many people as possible will be going to it, just to remind us all that there's nothing like seeing photography or any art form in the physical form. So I hope everybody can make it. So Carol, you asked if I could, so I've got to share my screen. Ben, I hope you're not feeling left out. We're 15 minutes in and you haven't got a chance to open your mouth yet. Do you want to just say, like, Ben, why don't you just say 5 words so that everybody knows you're actually alive?
Great idea, Nick, because what I would really love for you to introduce, Ben, is something that you actually had written to me about, and I was going to ask you anyhow about how you would like to steer, your contribution to the discussion about what it means to be of a photo gallery today, and how we can use our voice to bring that to fruition, and so on. And at last we have a great art fair. Probably the launch of Photo London is going to be the first big one on the global stage today, to the best of my knowledge. Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm kind of happy to wait my turn, and I kind of fear that after Michael's kind of really inspiring introduction to the fair, and I'm sure what will be an amazing introduction to Nick's new series that he'll deliver, I'll kind of struggle to kind of match up to their performance. But no, you're right, Carol. I do think what I will do is kind of give a little sort of introduction and guide to sort of what we're showing at the fair, but I won't really be able to do that without kind of going through the experience that we've had over the last sort of 18 months and how that's really kind of influenced what we are going to be showing at Photo London this year, and kind of how I've sort of really begun to view what our sort of responsibility as a gallery has become. So I'll look forward to kind of taking you through that. But Nick is obviously a large part of what we're presenting at the show this year, and his new project, The Day May Break, is a kind of world launch, a world premiere for the work. It won't be seen anywhere before its appearance at the art fair. So it's really the kind of the most important part of our presentation. So Nick, I'm kind of very happy for you to kind of show us the work, take us through the images, and I'm confident that everyone is just going to absolutely love it. I think it's Nick's best work, and it's a real honour to present it at Photo London.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. I just looked, I'm at 41% on my computer and I can't charge it. It was what the computer was wobbling around as I was trying to get a charger in. So to cut to the chase, share screen, and okay, can everybody see that?
Perfect.
Okay, so The Day May Break it's the first part of a global series dealing with environmental degradation and destruction impacting both humans and animals. I felt that it was more than time for me to incorporate people within the work, now that we are also dealing with climate change. And so all the people in these photographs are all climate refugees to some degree. I photographed in late 2020 in Zimbabwe and Kenya. And quite frankly, because I could get in during COVID, those were two countries on one continent that I could actually get into. The plan is, as I said, to photograph all over the world. But I was able to get in there. And the people in the photographs are all people who have been, in some form or other, massively impacted by climate change. There are people whose homes and livelihoods were swept away in floods from cyclones. There are farmers who lost their farms and their homes and had to move to other parts of the country. And then the animals are all rescued animals at 5 sanctuaries and conservancies where they are habituated. They are long-term rescues. And as a result of that, strangers were able to be in close proximity to them. So when you look at these photographs, you are seeing a frame. And of course, it has to be said now in this day and age, no, it's not Photoshop. So what you're going to be seeing are people and animals within the same frame at the same time. So this is Halima, Abdul and Frida, shot in Kenya. And I'll just, I presume, hold on.
Is that Nick?
That's a kudu.
Kudu,
Yeah, you guys see it when I zoom in, right?
yeah, I can see it better now.
Yeah.
It's kudu.
So she lost. She lived in northern Kenya. I mean, I won't tell everybody's stories and animal stories because it would just take too long and people will get bored. But they're in the book. All their stories are told. Now, when you look at the shared screen, is the rhino's horn covered by all of our, it is. Ah, okay, yikes. So if I do that, now, okay.
Cool.
Okay, so this is James and Fatu, and Fatu is one of the last two northern white rhinos on the planet. When he and his mother die, this species will be extinct. And they are doing everything they can with in vitro procedures to try and get eggs for, future preservation. Actually, let me just go back, because when you zoom in, you can see, I mean, the faces of the people are very important to me. I don't want it just to be figures. And again, this is why seeing physical prints is so much better with,
Even on screen, Nick, they're very dramatic, and it brings a sense of empathy and sorrow. There's so much pain in the face and tension, and even on screen, you can feel it and see it.
This is Alice, Stanley, and Najim. That's Fatu's mother. The light bulb. People ask, what's the deal with the light bulb? So I wanted the elements in the photographs to be stripped down to the barest elements of survival: a chair, a bed, a table, and for light, just the light bulb. And just that's how so many people live across Africa, with the light from one bare light. This is Fatuma Ali and Bupa, who I think and by the way, I mean, they're so, she in particular is wonderfully stylish. I had nothing to do with this. I didn't direct people. I just wanted them to, as much as possible, find their own poses. I wanted it to be as unstaged as possible. But that's her. I didn't do anything in the styling, aside from the fact that also she looks like Judi Dench.
She's stunning. She's absolutely stunning. And all the jewelry, the rings, the bracelets, the hair, absolutely amazing.
And again, having lost everything when all these people so far had farms, had lives, and then extreme drought, years of successive extreme drought caused them to lose everything. And now they work, people you've seen so far now work in very menial jobs as laborers, etc. Just after. So this is in Zimbabwe. This is Richard and Sky, another farmer who has fallen on hard times through years of extensive drought. And all the fog, by the way, the fog that you see is all real, using fog machines on location, which is water-based, non-toxic.
Why did you, can I just stop you there, Nick? I'm really interested in the atmosphere that you created. What was your inspiration to have this fogged atmosphere?
Good question. I'm glad you asked. So originally, the original idea, I can just stop share for a second, I guess. The original idea came because of wildfires. I live in California, and my place got devastated by fires, but even before that, just living in a world where we are constantly on fire and the smoke from that. However, when COVID came along, and we were all of us have been living in a kind of limbo, the fog for me took on an extra symbolic dimension of the world that we recognize disappearing from view, not just the natural world, but just the world in general. And so the fog, and actually there was even the riot smoke from various protests, and all of it together just felt like this world seen through this fog just felt very appropriate on multiple layers. Hold on, let me just share the screen again.
It seems almost a metaphor of what we've experienced, and people are in a fog when they talk about long COVID and having a fog brain and all the rest. It sort of links together.
Okay, moving on. Oops, there we go. This is Patrick and Harriet. Harriet's the owl. So
identified it.
You know, people are the literal focus of these photographs, and the animals are meant to appear like the kind of dreams, the memories. However, with the birds that I'd never photographed before, the birds being small had to be in the foreground. So it's the one time when the focus is on the birds. And yeah, this is Helen and Sky. Again, we just zoom in so you see her face.
Strong.
This photograph I particularly like. This is Teresa and Najeen, and I like it because it actually reminds me of one of those civil rights photos from Birmingham, Alabama in the early 60s. Again, you know, people, Teresa came dressed like that, her hair was like that, but just the vibe, I kind of really like the way that it's from that era. Anyway, yes. This is Luckness and Winnie and Kura. Also victims of losing their homes in cyclone floods that swept their home away. And Kura was an elephant that was saved from, the Chinese were taking elephants out of Zimbabwe for zoos in China, and they didn't take Kura because she had a limp in her leg. So she was spared and now has a decent life because of the limp. This is Richard and Grace.
Can I stop you on this picture for
Yeah.
a second? When I first saw this picture, Nick, I actually blinked my eye because it had, although it's not the same, it made me think of Carter's picture of the child and the buzzard that was around Kelvin Carter, you know, the Bang Bang Club photographer that actually took his own life. But it was that kind of crouching of a child and the bird, and the child was, I don't know why, it was, I blinked when I was looking at this particular picture, because you both are endangered species here, and both are suffering from a natural kind of a disaster emotionally and physically, from the physical sense. I don't know if what you were thinking, that my mind went to Kelvin Carter's picture. I think you know which one I'm talking about as well. I may be the only one that made me think about that.
It was simply that I want to feel a sense of melancholy and mourning for the earth in these photographs from both the humans and the animals. And it was merely a case of waiting for serendipity, for the moments to align. My last two projects have been very, very kind of precise in their sort of execution. And this for me was like photographic jazz, that I was just going out each day. I had an animal that I was going to photograph, and I had a group of people who were all climate refugees. And it was a case of just seeing where the moments of serendipity align, which person with which animal. And that just happened to be that with those birds. This is James again with his son Peter and Najim. And again, you know, it's quite hard to believe perhaps that it's Photoshop, because the animals were so everybody was incredible on camera, but the animals were so cooperative, because the carers everybody really trusted the animals, because the carers, the keepers, knew the animals were safe to be around people. So I was able to very quickly, in very, very short windows of time when it wasn't sunny, to get these elements aligning. This is in Zimbabwe, Jack and Regina and Levi and Diesel, two cheetahs that were rescued when they were babies. Just quick zoom in to.
They're all so humble. The human actors in the photographs all look so humble.
And this is Harriet and people in fog. Harriet again. Shepherd and Maffigat. I just put a bunch in, by the way. I actually don't even know what order these are in. I just put in a bunch. And at a certain point, when you feel like I've talked enough, please just stop me and I'll stop. So, I mean, I'll just flick through quite quickly because I don't want to overstay my welcome.
You're going to overstay. Are all of these in your new book?
Yes, they are. Now, so, you know, this is where it's just, who would have thought that this giraffe would, because, you know, there I was thinking of Edward Hopper, and then he said Dennis Hopper, Edward Hopper, and, you know, Nighthawks, you know, in the diner.
Yes,
and so, and then who would have thought that a giraffe would just lean down in that moment? So again, moments of serendipity. Patrick and flamingos, again, serendipity. You know, this is all, again, all this within a single moment that the flamingo would spread its wings. In these photographs, people like Patrick, a fisherman whose lives have been destroyed by overfishing in the local lakes. This is, again, all one frame. You can read from it what you will in terms of death or reawakening. I'm just going to skip through because I really do feel like I'm overstaying my welcome.
You know, what will be, we have color here. We have color.
Okay, yeah, so let me just, the trouble is we can't hear whether people are getting fed up. But anyway, what's actually important to me is during this series is that there is the young people, especially the girls, are strong. If you look at this photograph of Sophia and her father, she is like the little queen and he is the resigned courtier. And that was very deliberate, that these photographs are not completely bleak. They are portraits of survivors because they are still alive. They have survived. And in terms of the future, the hope is with little girls like Sophia, who looks out with her, and there's one more I'm going to quickly show. Oh no, that's Loch Ness and Marimba, Pangolin.
Pangolin, wow.
Yeah. So this is Zainab with her mother Miriam, and it's kids like this. I wanted the kids, especially the girls, to have the strength. So that's kind of, and then I just have you can see how the shoot happened with animals and people and small crew. Oh, so you can see, for example, you know.
How big a team do you go out with to set this up, and how long does it take you to get it?
The crew was about 15, I think, but because of, yeah, it was about 15. Anyway, so there you go. I'll switch that off now. Okay, so there you are.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And certainly this series of work brings a different sensibility about the environment and conservation and the footprint that man has had in natural disasters in our world, going from over 100 years ago, say 3 billion people that inhabited the earth, to us approaching 9 billion in the not so distant future. Where is this all going to be? How are we going to conserve the sheer effort that Mother Nature has taken to create all of this? And how do you, the question I would ask you, and I'd like to involve the rest of the panel on this, is how do you think this most recent body of work, following on Inherit the Dust, will create a kind of call to action for people to do something, to really think about what we all need to do to protect our world today?
Well, the line that I always say is that it is better to be angry and active than angry and passive. And you energize yourself and you focus your mind when you are active. And I feel that everybody, if whatever they really feel passionately about, there is the chance to do something. It doesn't matter how small it is. I mean, I wish we could include, I don't know who else is on the call, but you know, the photojournalists, and I worry that I'm always preaching to the converted. I worry that how much am I reaching people who don't already feel exactly the same way that I do? And I think, you know, for the photojournalists and photographers who are also listening in on this call, they might actually be able to do, in some ways, more than I can, because they have a wider audience. I choose to have, you know, a relatively niche, not of my own choosing. I don't choose it. I unavoidably have a fairly narrow audience because I'm in a world of, you know, specific photography. You know, photojournalists and National Geographic photographers, they can actually potentially reach far more people and impact more people. So I think everybody is kind of an incremental, is a kind of a small cog in an incremental wheel of change. The issue is that it's incremental, but if all those incremental wheels can add up to one big one, it sounds very sort of pie in the sky, woolly, woo-woo, but it's the only way forward, because clearly with the likes of Trump and Bolsonaro, etc., and whoever else is going to show up on the scene, we can't just keep waiting and waiting for political leaders.
Well, I would certainly agree on that. That's everyone on the planet should be taking a point of view. But you know, Michael, you know, with the Prix and the theme this year, curiously, I don't know if everyone was aware of it, was fire. I was a nominee for that, which was a great privilege in looking at the work and who I would represent and so on. It was a complete tie-in to the environment. What made you choose fire as the theme for the Prix this past year?
For the very good reason. I mean, the world is warming up in an unbelievably dramatic way. I mean, I just finished, we were working on the book for fire at the moment, and I was talking to David King, who is who's a former the government's chief scientific advisor, and he was explaining to me exactly how serious the problem of climate warming is, the amount of sea ice we're losing from the Antarctic, the amount of permafrost that's going, and these extreme climate events that we're seeing around the world even now are directly related to that. I mean, Biden said today that the climate crisis is here. He's a bit damn late, actually. It's been here for a while, but I mean, at least he's understood that. And I think that's the problem. And I think to the issue that Nick was talking about, thousands and millions of words have been written about the climate change. I've had to plow through quite a lot of them as we've chosen our various themes and we thought about the pre-pictet. But if we can't make these, if we can't, as Nick says, incrementally communicate using photography, then there's not much else left. So, you know, I think the work that Nick does, the work that the pioneering brave photojournalists do, it all adds up, and it's all very important, putting pressure onto the kind of policymakers, because actually the solutions now are not, I mean, some of them are in our own hands, you know, because we can be better custodians of the planet, but the problem we have now is that it's such an enormous problem. The solutions lie in the hands of the policymakers, the big ones. So, for example, and it may not be the right solution, but one of the solutions is to refreeze the Arctic. To do that, you need 600,000 boats. So, you know, that's not something that Nick, Ben, or I can actually organize. But I mean, you know, with the right political will, that can happen. And so, I mean, these, you know, the problems are large, but I think that the more that photographers like Nick are kind of making these images, which do disturb. I mean, even your wonderful birds. I mean, birds are strange creatures, aren't they? But I mean, even those wonderful pictures of birds make you worried immediately about the future of the planet. So I think that, you know, that to the point, photography has a big role to play in this.
That's so true. And I'm going to ask Ben the next thing, but you know, it goes back to the theme of this whole series is the still image, and how the still image freezes a moment and makes you really think very carefully about what is happening and how you read it and you come back to it and so on. So Ben, what's your take on that? And I'd like to hand over to you because I'd love for you to present, you know, what you're going to be doing at Photo London, which is utterly amazing. I got a sneak preview, everybody, and I have to say, I'm going to have to rob a bank to get a few of those images hanging at home, or just for me to gaze at on a regular basis. I mean, what's your take on all of that, Ben?
Well, I mean, what I would say is, I mean, Nick sort of rather kind of modestly says he doesn't have you know, a big audience, and you know, his kind of reach is very niche, and I sort of get that, and we're all the sort of, you know, in a way have our own little sort of positions in our business, but I think the point is, and what Michael was saying is what I would say also, but sort of go a little bit beyond that into kind of how our business works and how partnerships between galleries and artists and photographers and art fairs work, or other sort of other platforms for the work. Is that it is all a sort of partnership of a lot of people together, and with a sort of shared intent and a shared mission. You know, we can together reach an enormous audience, and I think, you know, that would be what I kind of would want to sort of come out of you know, our business, and our responsibility, it seems to me, is to kind of communicate almost more than any other art form, or that photography has an ability to communicate directly in a way that is quite unique, and that's really what I was sort of kind of getting at earlier when I was sort of talking about what our responsibilities are as a sort of gallery and as a kind of representative of artists and working in our industry, and sort of how the sort of experience of lockdowns kind of, you know, kind of sort of influenced my thinking. And it's been actually for me very profound, because I've kind of realized that actually we do have a responsibility to communicate these big ideas and big concepts, and big missions for the planet. And, increasingly we have an audience, we all have our own little audience, but together we have a kind of shared, sort of huge audience. But that, and I talked about this before when we met on our last Zoom, Carol, that I've kind of come to the conclusion that actually our role, the role of Atlas, or one of the things we can do or should be doing, is taking this responsibility seriously and taking our position as a kind of potential sort of influencer of ideas more seriously, and that we kind of, in a way, can have a sort of editorial sort of view or an editorial voice. So that's something that I've sort of thought about a lot, and I got quite involved with, and obviously during the time of lockdown, it coincided with the Black Lives Matter movement and all of that sort of thing. So there are a lot of things to talk about.
It's interesting when I look at your gallery in particular, which I probably know better than any of the other galleries because I know you for quite a long time. It has such a brilliant and eclectic mix of artists. Nick being one of them, and a conservationist, and when I think of some of the work that you're going to be showing both at the fair, but today as well. I'm saying tonight because it's Greenwich Mean Time here in London. When I think about the Black Lives movement that you have, the variety of work that you have, from fashion to statements about civil rights to the environment, is a very interesting mix, but all of them coalesce with a very fine art kind of platform of the way the execution is, that it makes it electric. So I'm going to hand it back to you, and please share with us some of the work we're going to be looking at Photo London.
Sure. Well, so firstly, Nick's show, Nick's the presentation of Nick's work on our booth takes up a large proportion of the stand, and it's a premiere of this new body of work. So there are some of the major works from this series on show. And I suppose what's interesting about doing this art fair for me is that so much time has kind of passed since we last did a big major art fair, that actually what we're showing here at Photo London is sort of, in a way, kind of a sort of a mixture of things. It's kind of, in a way, kind of, what I've been thinking about and sort of focusing over the last sort of 18 months. There's been some of the projects that we've been working on, like Nick's series. But it's quite interesting having this time between doing big events and then suddenly, doing this sort of this amazing fair with Michael. And it sort of really made me it was really kind of quite a luxury to actually, put together a sort of group of images which really kind of, embodied, our thinking and what we'd been kind of involved with over this period, and sort of almost going, this is it. This is what we've come up with after this period of time, and this is really kind of where our thinking has kind of come to after this experience. Having said that, you'll come onto our booth and see a kind of big variety of things. But I mean, if we start with the image that we have up at the moment, one of the great things, the great sort of experiences of lockdown in a way, was suddenly being able to sort of pick up the phone and ring people who would normally not answer the phone, kind of, and things that start projects or kind of get things going that's, you know, we hadn't been able to do before because people were busy. So, you know, I did a lot of that and sort of just ringing people out of the blue, and, you know, everyone was kind of, or not everyone, but a lot of people were around and were actually answering calls. So one of the calls or series of calls that I made was with David Fahey in California, who runs and manages the Dennis Hopper archive. And we've been talking about this a long time, and I said, look, I really, really want to work with Dennis's archive. And so we kind of talked, and sort of we kind of set up this deal to represent the Dennis Hopper archive in the UK. So we're now the exclusive agent for Hopper's amazing archive of photography and Polaroids, and it's an amazing kind of collection of work. So the two of his really, really sort of most kind of iconic pieces on our booth. The image in front of us is called Double Standard, very much inspired by Ed Richet image, and obviously Hopper and Richet were kind of great buddies. And it's probably, you know, probably one of Dennis's, if not the most famous sort of photographic image that he took. So it's great to be able to show that. I think, you know, I can't remember it being shown in an art fair in London. Probably has. Probably making this up, but I think it's the first time. But so anyway, that's one of the kind of, you know, the showpieces, or one of the great treasures of our booth for this year, alongside Nick's work. In addition to Nick, we're also showing a fairly extensive selection of work by Bastian Woot. Bastian's career has been amazing and sort of kind of quite stratospheric. He's still, you know, in his mid-30s, a young photographer, although his kind of work really sort of, you know, looks much more mature than his years. He's very, 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 very kind of sort of sophisticated work, but extremely simple at the same time, which is what I love about it. It's deceptively simple, and we're featuring 2 extra large works and a couple of smaller pieces, all from the same series, or kind of a complementary series of works, including 2 brand new works that have never been shown before. So actually, on our booth in general, we will have, you know, a mixture of things that have never been seen before, and some things that people will be very familiar with. So in addition to Bastian, we've got work by the other brand, that's Bill, so no relation. Which a fantastic series of nudes. We've got a total of 14 original, either vintage or signed nudes by Bill Brandt on one wall, which should be quite an eyeful. Which would be I'm yet to sort of kind of see exactly what it's going to look like, walking from Nick's series on climate change to a wall of bottoms and knees and ankles and I think it'll work, but it may be a bit of a surprise as you go from one wall to another.
Looking forward to seeing that. The counterpoint and so on.
Yeah.
Carry on. Sorry, Ben. Carry on.
Yeah, a couple of other treasures we've got. We're really sad that the photographer Steve Shapiro can't join us. He was coming over, and he rang me about 2.5 weeks ago, and he said, Ben, I'm going mad. I've got to go. I've got to get out of here. He lives in Chicago with his wife, Maura. And they just were going stir crazy. And he said, look, I've got to get out of here. Can I come and stay? And I said, Steve, you can come anytime you like. Come for Photo London. It would be great. We do a book signing, and I'd love to have you there. And up until a couple of days ago, he was going to come, and then 2 days ago, unfortunately, he called me. He said, "Look, I'm really sorry, Ben. I can't handle it. All of the COVID restrictions and the tests and everything has just kind of got the better of me, and unfortunately, he's not going to be joining us." But so his work was I really kind of got very, very deeply involved with his work and with Steve himself over the last sort of few months. And we, were in communication a lot, and I was kind of talking to him a lot about his work, and he's the most amazing storyteller. So, loads of things about his career that, I was kind of asking about. And obviously because of the big issues of Black Lives Matter movement over the last 18 months, his work has really, really come to the fore. And he, as a photographer, has come to the fore and been interviewed, and his work's been featured in magazines. He was on the cover of Time magazine, and he has, his experience as a photojournalist has been one of the sort of key reference points for what's been going on in the world today. Sadly, his view has come out as being very much that actually, since those days on the Selma marches that he was photographing and the civil rights photographs he was taking in the 1960s, actually very little or not nearly enough has changed. So that was a kind of big focal point and a sort of focus for me last year, and that's why this work is here on the booth this year at Photo London.
Well, I think it's wonderful that it's on it, but I always found it curious that when this work was made, that Steve had, that he did it in collaboration with a famous Black, highly articulate, intellectual writer called James Baldwin, and to have a kind of short Jewish guy from New York in collaboration with a Black academic with a brilliant mind in Selma together. I would have loved to have been there to witness the two of them collaborating. It must have been, I can't even begin to imagine what it would be like. So I just had to make that comment. It just made me think about the two of them collaborating together. And his work is well, it's as modern today as when he shot it, frankly.
Yeah, no, it's an extraordinary project, and they produced this book together, and but in many ways, Steve was already kind of seen as a sort of the camera lens that was recording these images. So he already has had his role, and his sort of position was kind of carved out for him already. So I can see how that partnership happened. So here, complete contrast, we've got work of Nico Luma, Finnish photographer, contemporary photographer who we've worked with and represented for many years. Nico's work is all about time and light, and also the way he kind of turns photography on his head, I think, is absolutely fascinating. And this provided for me over the last few months a sort of huge kind of antidote to sort of all the sort of the bad news. I'd always go to Nico for kind of to get lost in one of his discussions about kind of light and what was going on inside a camera and what photography was really about, which was actually not what was going on outside the camera, but what was going on inside the camera. And that's actually what his work is all about, is the process of light and light sensitive material, and what happens when light comes through the lens of a camera and hits the negative. And his work kind of focuses on trying to kind of extrapolate that, and in some cases kind of see how far that can go. So some of his works, almost everything is made up of single negative exposed many times with different shapes and colors made with colored lenses, colored filters, exposed on the same negative. Sometimes, in the extreme cases, I think the images that have the most exposures are over 10,000 exposures on one negative, to the extent that the negative starts almost to disintegrate. What's extraordinary is that actually after that many exposures, a negative cannot take. There's a finite number of exposures that a negative can actually absorb. So anyway, that's a kind of a really nice sort of contrast to all of these. And then as you probably know, we're doing this. I've been working with David Kogan for many years as a sort of advisor and a great friend and sort of collaborator with his collection. A large part of which is this extraordinary collection of works by Robert Capa that we've accumulated and bought with him and collected with him. He bought Robert Capa's camera some years ago, which is an amazing thing to have. And this collection forms one of the special exhibitions at Photo London, which is going to be a real joy to see. And for anyone who's interested in Robert Capa or a Capa fan, it's going to be a real sort of blowout. And over 50 or 60, really iconic images in one exhibition. So this image is not by Capa, but by Gerda Taro. And we're really excited to be showing this. It's tiny. It's barely 2 inches wide. It's just a little bit larger than a contact print, but an original Gerda Taro vintage print, which we're really excited to show. And I rather like the fact that the Capa exhibition is on this sort of big room, and it's sort of Robert Capa in big letters. And actually on our booth, we thought about having Capa on our booth, and we've got Capa prints, and everyone loves Capa, and it was the obvious thing to choose. But actually, I rather like the fact that instead of kind of Robert Capa in big capital letters, we've got this very modest but incredibly rare vintage print by Gerda Taro.
Well done for that, Ben. We like to see the woman out front rather than
Yeah.
the headline,
Real
her lover. Excellent. And I think your booth is going to be absolutely stunning. And I'm just so over the moon about the whole idea that Photo London is actually happening, that we're actually going to be live, that we actually can see it, not a virtual reality kind of a tour, but actually smell the print and know what it's all about. We have some folks that have tuned into the program that would like to ask some questions. I just see 2 names, Adam Hinton and Jillian Edelstein. Barry, can you help me with this? I'm useless at this.
Hi, Carol. So we've got a few questions from the audience, and however, it was just to mention that when we were asked, are there any other photographers in the audience and listening in this show, I noticed that Adam Hinton is, and sorry to bring you all out, but I thought if they wanted to, Adam and Gillian, if they wanted to join in and have a question or make a comment, then we can invite them. But I think we'll leave it to them. There's a button on your screen that will be raise your hand. And if you click that, then it tells us that you want to engage. Otherwise, we'll let you enjoy this as it is. There's a few questions, and I'm just trying to group them so that we can go along and just to allow you to actually to continue the discussion. There's a few questions for Michael. One is, what is your most favorite show at the fair that asks all the questions or ticks all the boxes for you personally? Second question is again for Michael, is have you considered printing images on billboards in and around London landmarks? Would that reach and have a larger impact, assuming the advertising business would allow that and support it and finance it? And one more for Michael is, what happens with the prints after the fair? Once those are answered, then we go back to the other questions for the other speakers.
Remind me what the first question was again.
Personally, what is your most favorite show that ticks all the boxes? And
you know why I can't answer that, don't you? Because if I say anything other than Ben and Nick's, I'm going to be in trouble. But I mean, seriously, I really don't. And on this occasion in particular, I'm not going to sit here and say I have a particular favorite booth, because everybody who's made the effort, and they're significant efforts to be part of this fair, deserve our praise, thanks, and gratitude from all of us, because it's been really, really tough. And I take my hat off to everybody who's taking part, leaving aside what my personal views are about what they're showing or what they're not showing. I have a personal favorite in terms of we've been working with Shirin Neshat for about almost 4 years on this Master of Photography show. First she was going to do it, then she couldn't do it because of filming commitments. Then of course the pandemic struck. So it's a real pleasure to see that show come off, and to find how thrilled Shirin is about it, and also to witness the kind of the collaborative spirit in which the photographers she works with have been part of the journey too. So if you see the photography special in the FT at the weekend, you'll see a nice conversation between Shirin and Isaac Julian. We will have a talk with Shirin and Nick Knight. Shirin, it turns out, shot the Malala photograph in Nick's studio, so that's kind of cool. So there's a lot of nice things about that show, which I think illustrate to me in which the way in which the photography community, probably more than any other community in the arts, really hang together when they need to, which is kind of nice. The issue about billboards it's timely, because as we've been speaking, I've been signing off billboards for which will be transmitted throughout the city electronically, not print, I'm afraid. But there's a company called Ocean Outdoors who I should be thanking, because they've given us an enormous number of billboards all across the city, from Heathrow to shopping centres in Stratford and various other places, which feature images that will be seen at the fair with big Photo London branding. So yes, it's a really good idea, and I'm pleased to say we're actually doing it. In terms of what happens to the prints after the fair, you better ask Ben that, because I really have nothing to do with them. I think if the dealers thought that I was going to have anything to do with their prints, they would probably be a little less enthusiastic about coming to the fair. So this is really, we're a platform, and all of the prints that come into Photo London return to the artists or the galleries who made them and who promoted them.
Thank you for that, Ben. Canberra, another question?
Yeah, so quite a few questions. We'll take the last one sort of as more a practical question for Michael, and then there's more questions for Nick and Ben. But it's very practical. Peter Bennett has been attending and supported the Photo London for 5 years, has attended every year. He's bought his ticket, but has got COVID yesterday and can't come on his allocated day. Is there someone I can email to arrange to change the days? Any help would be most appreciated. Should I email you this afterwards, and then you can?
Yeah, the answer is yes, and please, if you email it, I can put you in touch with the right people.
Okay, perfect. I will, then there's a question. So first, Ben, what happens to the prints after the fair?
Hopefully they get purchased by someone
Hurrah!
and they go up on their wall at home. That's the ideal scenario. Obviously, if that doesn't happen, they come home here and back to the gallery and wait for someone else to take them home another time. But the answer, I guess, is if the work comes back to us and is available. We don't just sort of borrow it for the fair and then give it back. It's here. We look after it. We represent the artist's work, and we look after their work here at the gallery.
This is a question for Nick. Will we be able to read the stories of each photo, the animal and the person in each photo?
Yes, absolutely. In the book, there is a section devoted to everyone's stories, both humans and animals, what happened to them, and also where they are now. And also, I should mention that a percentage of the share of proceeds is going in the form of a royalty payment to each of those people who are featured. On a biannual basis, they'll receive a percentage of the proceeds, which will hopefully, for example, help them get their kids through school, etc.
There's two more questions for you, Nick. One is, your photography is not only informing the public about the destruction, but also evidencing, such as your picture with the last two white rhinos. How do you feel about how little is being done to protect the people, the animals, and the habitats and the earth?
How do I feel about how little is being done? I mean, God, that's such a hard question to answer, because we just have to keep on battling away. And as I mentioned, everybody who has the possibility of expressing their anger and passion about each of their own issues that they cover, we just have to keep on at it. And yeah, I can't think of a more articulate way than saying that, really. That wasn't very articulate at all, so apologies for that.
No, it's fine. How do you feel when you see your images printed, and what is the relationship between you, your representative, the gallery, for example, Ben, and the exhibitors, in this case, Michael? I think this is from a photographer's point of view. What is how do you feel when you see these images that are printed, but also how do you manage these relationships that you have with your gallery as representative and the exhibitions? So,
as I mentioned, by far and away the most important representation of the work is the printed form. As we increasingly, unfortunately, head further and further into a digital world, for me, things like Photo London, things like exhibitions at the gallery, there'll be an exhibition of the work at Atlas Gallery starting September the 16th. The printed form, there's just no comparison to seeing the work in person. I mean, even I can't tell whether I've taken a good photograph until I see it printed. Kind of a lot can look very good backlit on a computer screen, but once you see it in that two-dimensional form printed, that for me is the real test. And I think Ben would attest to the difference that he saw between seeing the work for the first time as a JPEG on his computer screen and then seeing the physical prints in the editioned format. There's no contest. And so one really relies on art fairs and on galleries to get the work out there, and you hope people will still go. What's astonishing to me is just how many people now buy photographs online without ever having seen the physical print, when for me, again, they're such different beasts.
I think it's very curious that you say that, but I think what's happening online, and especially since the pandemic, I'm sure all of us have experienced it. I mean, it was almost a joke in the first lockdown that no one can buy toilet paper, at all. And I think during the pandemic, and especially here in England, where everything was closed down, no shops were open except, for food, that you got used to shopping online. People are accustomed to, and they take a greater share of the market. But I, like you, Nick, and I'm sure both Michael and Ben would agree, there is nothing like having it, the real thing out there, to look at the way it's printed, to experience what the image is all about. A computer screen for me is very flat, and then it certainly makes me look ugly. I hate to use, like you, Nick, I hate to be on Zoom, but here I am doing this show, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. I think I'm going to ask a final question to all of you. And I'll start, Michael, with you. This is the 6th session of I'm not counting the years. I'm only going to count.
Oh, no, sure.
Because we know
Thank
it's in between the stop, start, and so on. I think looking outward for probably all of you, but I'll start with you, Michael, about what are you hoping is going to happen in terms of how people perceive photographic fairs, and who is going to benefit them, not just the commercial sense, but more importantly, for like Nick's work, which is educational, it's beyond it being a beautiful piece of art. What are you hoping, looking out into the future, a fair can accommodate?
Well, I think for us, I should say, by the way, that that we regard this fair as a sort of bridge between this dreadful time when we've spent most of our time on computer screens, and the resumption of normal service with the fair in May next year. So back to our normal slot. In terms of what we're trying to achieve, obviously we're trying to stimulate a market in London, and we're trying to educate people about photography, and that education purpose is very, very important for us, which is why we spend a lot of our time doing magazines every month. We have a monthly book club. We really think that we have a job to do, not just to turn up, as I said, for 5 days, but actually to a job to do throughout the year, in educating our audience, bringing our audience into connection with photographers like Nick and galleries like Ben's, and just being part of a community of people who are beginning to appreciate and understand photography. So we think there's still a fair way to go, but I think what we're hoping is that in terms of photography fairs, that we establish ourselves in London, and we're able to operate in a kind of in a relatively normal way. So we can say with some certainty that Photo London is going to be in May at any particular year. It's not going to have to shift to September, so yeah, we're hoping for a return to normality. We're not absolutely sure we're going to get that, but let's see.
Well, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Else, it will happen.
Sure.
I'm ultimate optimist, as anyone that knows me well enough. Everyone says things are going down the drain. I say, which drain? And it's not going to.
Yeah.
Nick, what's your thoughts? You go to these fairs, you participate in them, and I just want to make a mention to the audience that is watching is you are doing a book signing, I hope, at the fair.
Yes. Yes. And sorry, Ben, did you just say something?
I was just going to say on Sunday.
Yeah.
On Sunday, yes.
Oh, on Sunday, good.
Yeah.
What time on Sunday?
12 o'clock, isn't it, Ben?
High noon?
12 o'clock.
I just
High noon.
I'm in the queue on time, wearing a mask. Ben, what's your thought? Closing about what you're hoping to achieve, looking outward, what fairs are going to mean to you and your gallery.
I think it's very, very simple. It's all about this idea of partnerships and people supporting each other. We can't kind of, we can't survive just sort of hammering away at things on our own. We have to help each other. And I think what's fantastic about Michael's approach is this sort of very, very supportive, collaborative approach that he has to the dealers that do his fair. And he's very, very supportive of the ideas that we want to present on our booth. And I think that's really what I kind of hope to see in the future is art fairs that have kind of, you know, this sense of support of the artists and the dealers, and, you know, and their ideas, and a kind of, you know, a sort of sense of a sort of collaborative community, all sort of trying to kind of work towards the same end.
All right, thank you. And Nick, I'm going back to you. I didn't mean to cut you off because I just want to get that book signing in as well. I mean, you're participating in Photo London, and you know, of course, you participate in other fairs as well. What you know, what are you looking outward? How are you perceiving how fairs can evolve into the future? What contribution they can make for photography as a whole? What's your thoughts?
I think that art fairs have actually become more and more important. And now with COVID also happening, people are sadly going, it seems, going less and less to galleries themselves. They're just going online and looking at work. And so whatever can attract and entice and draw people, again, I keep harping on the same thing, back to see the physical work, all the better. So if it's just some kind of great monster show of multiple different photographers' work, like you'll get at an art fair, besides obviously museum shows, all the better. So I just hope that as we kind of navigate these kind of endless twists and turns with COVID, that people will just slowly get back into revisiting the physical work, because, as I said, there's nothing like seeing the physical work.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. And there's something very engaging that, you know, it's the buzz of seeing something. And if you go to a fair with friends and colleagues and so on, to talk about it, you know, to have a coffee or even a glass of wine, as I always do, and be able to have an exchange about revisiting it, walking past it, seeing it again. You know, if it's on screen, you finish and then you're off doing something else. So it's a very, very different experience. And let us all hope that, you know, fairs become and grow. And as Michael, I think, you know, what you're doing with Photo London, it's not just for 4 days in May or 4 days in September. It's throughout the whole year, the way you're connecting with your audience. And I think that's one of the most important things. And you're doing that also, Ben, I noticed with all the emails that I get and what's happening and what you're doing online. So the combination of the two, it is not a disconnect. After the fair closes, there's still a continuum, which I think is really important. And photography, you know, certainly from when I first immigrated to England, photography was like a stepchild. It was not as big and important a form of art as it is today. And certainly Photo London has put it much more into the focus than it has ever been these last few years. Well, I think we're drawing the show to a close. Thank you, panel, Michael, Nick, Ben. It has been an amazing privilege to have you all together. I want to remind the audience that next week on the 9th, Thursday, Photo London opens. I think it opens at 11 o'clock. You help me with that, Michael. And please, everyone, come along. I'm certainly going to be there, and I would love to say hi, wearing my mask, which won't be American, and really looking forward to it. And a very special thanks to Panvira, the co-founder of the Frontline Club, for organizing the backbone of all these talks and ensuring all corners come together on the night, and we could not do it without her pulling it all together. Our next talk is the next Thursday of October, which is the 7th, and we're very, very excited to actually, listen to this, we're actually going to be broadcasting live. We're going to Bristol, and we're featuring photography at the festival. And the festival is all about a new and innovative citywide festival that celebrates the power and diversity of photography. Tracy Marshall is the festival director, and she's going to be joining us along with Michael from the Royal Photographic Society and a couple of surprise photographers that will also be there that are part of the festival. Thank you all so much. I've had so much fun tonight. I've so thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you, Nick. I know, especially you have a hell of a mission getting here from the West Coast of the United States, flights that were canceled. I mean, forever wearing hours and hours and hours a mask and agreeing. I know you hate doing these Zoom sessions. So thank you so much for doing this. I look forward to seeing you at Photo London. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night for now. Bye.
Okay.
Bye. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.